All right, all right. We are getting going here. Thank you, everyone who's already in this session. I'm going to go ahead and kick some stuff off in the chat, and we'll give it just another minute or two before we get started. But joined by some awesome people here, and gosh, we got a ton of people in this session. We got about 150, 35, 36, 37 people live. So this is going to be a fun one. And we were just saying backstage, what an eclectic kind of crew that we got going here. Let's go ahead and start off in chat. For those of you that have been to any of the Partner Hacker, now nearbound.com virtual events in the past, definitely love chat. So tell me what everyone's doing on this Wednesday and where you're calling in from. So Jared Fuller here, Chief Ecosystem Officer of nearbound.com. And I'm calling in from sunny and still hot St. Pete, Florida. Aaron, we were just talking about some builds. You got a C10 build coming up and going to potentially deck it out. Where's the track that you're locally racing at?
Circuit of the Americas, Austin, Texas. It is also still very balmy here. We're gonna have a warm 100-degree day today, but Austin, Texas, the Formula One track here.
Amazing. Well, thank you. Welcome, Aaron. Aaron is shares a similar title. I'm on the disruptive startup side. He is on the big company side. Chief Ecosystem Officer of Qualtrics. Have learned a ton from him in some of our conversations and podcasts. And then, Catie, are you based in where your orange shaded company is? So you're up northeast. I was just out there in Boston. So we have Catie Moynihan from HubSpot.
Yep, I am outside of Boston. I was a long time in office HubSpot employee, but now I'm about 20 miles outside of Boston. Happy to be here. I'm an app partner manager at HubSpot.
Incredible. And then we have the godfather of the partner community, Sunir Shah of the Cloud Software Association and CEO of AppBind. And he's part of the cohort of partner people north of the border that are silently trying to invade America with their niceness. Sunir, you are calling in from where today?
I'm in Toronto. Yeah. And
Toronto.
It's very sticky here because I'm on the breakfast counter and apparently I didn't clean this up before.
All right. Well, we're going to have a sticky conversation. I think we're going to get things rolling here. We're just about 5 minutes in. So welcome to the great debate, partner attach. I've heard from some of the people I respect tremendously that partner attach is the most important metric as a partner leader, an ecosystem chief, what have you, to coordinate your partner efforts across your operating model. If partners aren't involved, how can you possibly drive partner results? But that tends to start a lot of problems. And you start talking about this on LinkedIn and people vehemently disagree or they vehemently agree. So where the heck do we stand? I'll set my biases aside and try to play my best as moderator and host, but I will let them be known that I tend to be pretty favorable to the concept because I use that to just say, hey, for me, I'll set my position out. Attribution kills us all, right? Was that partner source? Was that partner this? Was that partner that? Partner attach, I say, hey, does partner attach generate better results than non-partner attach? Yes or no? If it's yes, if that cohort is better across marketing, sales, or success, to me, that's a simple enough argument for the ops and the CFO team. But I'm actually going to start this one off with Sunir because that might set you off a little bit, Sunir. You might go, Jared, there's some nuance. There's some things there. And I'm sure Aaron and Catie are going to hop in right behind that. So Sunir, you're part of the problem that got me into this whole community and space in the first place.
I'm part of the problem.
You first.
Okay.
You're part of the problem for all these.
I buy drinks. Folks. Is that what you're saying? Yeah. We can have a different, we can have partnership anonymous instead. That would be a different thing to do. Okay. So I don't really remember having this conversation with you because we have so many conversations and they're always exciting. But here's my view about partner attached. And I think 2023 has really given me an existential crisis with what the hell we're all doing here. The problem with partner attached, which I track, of course I track it wherever I work. The problem is that if that's your core metric, your key metric for your team, you have no value as far as the CFO is concerned, because what you are doing is coattail riding on a core revenue team. And I think a lot of partner teams have faced this problem that in this downturn, when they're looking at where is the revenue coming from, I can either put more money into what is generating money, predictable revenue, or put more money in hand waving, please give me credit for your work revenue team. And that's the team that will end up cut. But So that's a problem that I think a lot of people might face. The second problem is, while you should track it, it isn't actually the value you're creating in the partnership team is not attaching partners to what customers are like, what's happening. That's just, again, what are you doing? You're glomming on to someone else's glory. You have to be creating real value in the market, which is critical to the function of the company. And partner attach doesn't actually describe any of that. And so my metric, because I'm crazy, is called Hearts One. That's how I called it. It has a more weirder, longer name: unsolicited.
Okay.
Unsolicited in-market
question,
actions inbound. But Hearts One, I think, describes more of what the value of the partnership team is, which is this Nearbound idea of bringing in a flood of opportunity of the market promoting you and being aligned to market, which is what the partnership team should be doing. So I'm not against partnership attached, but I think any indirect revenue metrics is putting you in a competition with the revenue team internally, and it's not a good position to be in. It's not value creating.
So I've certainly heard CFOs, kind of echo similar statements. If you are, let's say, unsophisticated or kind of junior varsity in how you're approaching that, like, hey, this partner was involved, but et cetera, it makes sense. But at the same time, though, you said Hearts One. Aaron, you've certainly had these meetings with CFOs, CEOs in multi-billion-dollar settings. Hearts One, is that going to fly with the CFO over partner attach? I feel like the CFO is going to be like, what are you talking about even more?
Yeah, no. In my world, I don't think that would fly. Since Sunir shared his point of view, I'll share mine. There's not a one size fits all for all of this. So I want to start that on the front end. Like, I'm coming from a scale place where we have thousands of sellers. We are trying to scale a two-way street motion. And we care a lot about partner source. I'm not saying we don't, but it's a metric that is underlying attach. And the reason I call that out is because when you operate at massive scale, and actually to Sunir's point, people care about revenue right now. We talked about this, Jared, quite a bit. It's a unique moment in history when, it used to be land grab. Let's go win market share no matter what. No one cared if you made money. Well, that ship sailed 24 months ago. Now you got to make money, right? So people care about where do you get your money from. And I've been at Qualtrics for 20 months, we've dramatically increased our partner source revenue, more than doubled it. And I'm not going to share the actual number, but it's large. So we are a sourcing machine at this point. Most of our very large deals are coming from our partner community. But when you only care about source, you end up creating a one-way street. And what you end up doing is your partners that source for you the most, how do you guarantee that you source for them the most? So if they bring you $1, you better bring them one if you want to really scale that motion. And how do you do that at scale across thousands of sales reps? It's really, really hard. That's why I care a lot about partner attach. So when I'm looking at our overall business metrics, attach is like the super metric. And then underneath it, you have other pieces that fold into it, like partner sourced. But we're moving to a world where I'm not going to attach any partners to any deals or have my field do so if those partners do not source for me. So we're doing it in a programmatic way. We're doing it in a scalable way. And we're doing it in a way that dramatically increases overall revenue, both sourced, and we're fortunate enough to run at a scale that I can see the broad view of the business, which is what happens in the trailing 12, 24, 36 months inside of our accounts when partners are extensively working with them, whether it's sourced or not, right? I know our revenue goes through the roof. I know the deals close faster. I know the customer CSAT scores are better, right? I know this emphatically, and so does our executive team. It's not a point you could really argue. But coming back to how I started this, I'm at the scale game, which is, it's massive, right? I cannot have a single metric for my business. I have to look more holistically at it all. So they both matter to me. That's kind of my point of view.
I think that was very well said, Aaron. I think on this topic in particular, what you highlighted for me, which I think we have a fantastic person and logo in HubSpot and Catie in the App Partner program to kind of discuss, is that the value, if you're thinking in terms of partner sourced or partner influence, tends to be through, I think, a myopic lens in the CRO, right? And partner attach in many ways could be involved, let's say on an integration side or a success, right? Or let's say it's on a marketing campaign. You're going direct, but you could actually attach marketing to other initiatives. And I've certainly experienced that being a partner to HubSpot through 3 companies in a row. I've been able to attach myself to their marketing campaigns, to their sales org, to their success team, and kind of vice versa. Catie, tell us a little bit about how your kind of point of view is in particular and how you've seen it over at HubSpot.
Yeah, I think the interesting distinction to make is between the lens of partner attached revenue, right? And in our minds, we're not riding the coattails of a revenue generating team like sales. We're looking at it through a lens of customer delight, right? So if that number is high, we know a lot of our customers are excited about that partnership. I agree it's not the only metric to look at, right? Because as soon as I hear partner attached, I want to know, all right, how many active customers are using that integration? So what's the size of the customer? How do we impact that number? So I'm not trying to say that we are impacting revenue. I'm trying to say that we are delighting customers. And in a world where retaining customers is hyper important right now in this market, if we know customers are integrated, they're more likely to retain. So that's the metric that we focus in on. And I think the thing, I talk to tech companies all day long and I ask them, my first conversation with them is understanding their goals. And a lot of times people have a hard time understanding their partnership goals. And what I want to encourage folks to do after this call is think about how their partnership goals align with their business goals, right? And then be able to tell that story of how they're impacting their business goals. So that's how we look at it. We're really playing that retention card and thinking about how partner attached revenue tells that that retainment story for our business.
And
Catie, can I ask you a follow-up question to that? Just because you sparked a thought in my mind. How would you compare the sophistication of the way your organization looks at partnerships, your goals, how you're measuring them, all of that, to the companies that you actually are talking to, and all of your peers in the world, right? Because there's different life cycles of how people view ecosystems, partnerships, what's the value, all of that. I'd love your point of view on that, just given how you framed your point of view a second ago.
Yeah, 100%. I think the interesting thing about partnerships, HubSpot has a fantastic program, but we are still in our infancy as well. So yes, I think we are a more sophisticated program than maybe some, maybe most, but we still consider ourselves learning every day, iterating every day. Our approach in 2022 is vastly different than our approach today. And we have pivoted from let's just get as many partners as we can in the door to how do we really focus on quality of partnerships and that MRR number in 2023. So I agree we are I believe that we are a sophisticated program, but still very much in our infancy. So I try to communicate what we've learned to my partners and hope that helps them along their journey. But there's vastly different stages in this process.
Gosh, if HubSpot's at their infancy, then God help us all.
Right.
Not to scare anybody. Yeah.
Spoken like a true, category leader and consistent performer. Fun fact: HubSpot is, to my knowledge, one of the only companies in SaaS that's never missed an earnings call. So,
Jared, you knock on wood right now, and I want to see you do it. Scary.
Hey, I'm not the one who said it. It was Harry Stebbings from 20VC. So we'll blame it on him if he's the one that uncovered that with, I think it was Dharmesh. But I think the program that you're a part of is a really good lens to think about this question, because if you're driving partner attach, and obviously there's downstream retention metrics, there's also upstream activation metrics. So let's say sign up for HubSpot CRM, right? Trial to paid. Right. So there's some integrations, and not all integrations are equal, not all partners are equal, that are going to generate more conversion. There are some integrations that are going to generate more retention or net retention. And in my conversations across not just the partner team, but the product team and the platform team with Karen, who leads the platform and product team over there, she's thinking about that in every direction. And everyone in your group is driving, let's say, attach, so to speak, and obviously tangential metrics that move across departments. So let's say marketing, product marketing, customer marketing, right? There's automated emails that go out to connect people and try and bring that in. If you don't have what partner attach does for your business, obviously there's a problem. So maybe we could kind of start there as a follow on using kind of the app framework, right? In HubSpot's growing ecosystem, 1,500 partners, we're seeing attached touch sales, marketing, success, product. And obviously we'd have to assume, only HubSpot truly knows the totality of those numbers, that those activities are more valuable than other activities they otherwise could be doing. Sunir, I imagine that that's part of your, a qualm with partner attach, is that as a metric by itself, there's not necessarily business impact across each of those functions?
No, I wouldn't say that. So what Catie was talking about, and I 100%, 1,000,000,000% agree, that the whole purpose of, this is my mantra, you heard me say this, the only reason we do partnerships is because the customer needs that partner, that other company, in order to buy from us or succeed with us. It's part of their journey, to the buyer's journey through us, our life cycle. And so, the idea of attaching a partner gives you some visibility on how they're interfacing with you. But if your CFO is then measuring your revenue impact based on this, they're going to find it, well, didn't the success team work on that? Didn't the app team work on that? Didn't the sales team work on that? So you're not actually demonstrating your true value there. And what Aaron was getting to, which I'd like to understand more about, talking about partner source and then trading and developing value and them bringing customers to you, that's actually the Hearts One metric, but in a simpler way of saying it to my team, is you want to get your partners to love you so much that they're bringing customers to you because you work so well with them. Because that's actually the value of the relationship team around the company, is to highlight the stuff. That's your value. But you should never have the same KPIs as another team. So if the success team has adoption retention metrics, you're not also having the same metrics. You're feeding and supporting their metrics. And you want to show that your work with the external market is making that it's easier for them to hit their metrics. And you can show specifically the value you're creating for that other team internally, because you're there to support core revenue, not compete with it. And that's my problem with attach. It's a competition metric rather than a supportive metric. It can be supportive, but I think a lot of people have been looking at this year competitively as which team to cut, which I think is a lesson that maybe there's a better way of talking about this way of measuring.
You said something, I put something in chat that's kind of related to what you just said, Sunir. And Aaron, you might have a POV on this. I think I've heard you say something. You think of partner attach as something has a wider remit. Is partner attach a metric for the partner department, or is it a metric for each department? So like looking at it solely through the lens of, let's say, marketing attaching partners, or let's say sales attaching partners, is it both, or is it something that you use to drive alignment with each individual one versus like, hey, here's my wide partner remit and our attach metrics, for me, my department? Or is this something that should be reported up? What if sellers are the ones attaching a partner? Is that bad?
Yeah.
Is that the partner team's fault?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think we need to ground ourselves all on a foundation, which is, how important are partnerships to your entire company? If they're kind of important, partner source, I think, is probably a great metric. And if you're playing in SMB, probably a great metric. If you're doing a lot of like resell stuff, all of that, great metric. I think the challenge that you have is if you're at a company that does a lot of their business in the enterprise space, and you look at the reality of how a deal gets done. Like, I came from direct before I did partnership stuff. I was an AE, I ran sales teams, and did all that stuff. The reality is there's not a single deal in history that I've ever heard of that just magically Bluebird dropped on my door, came out of nowhere, didn't take any involvement from any other teams. And like the partner team just grabbed it with a partner, and all of a sudden it flew in and closed, and we're all, doing backflips. And they're like, partner team, you killed it, right? That's not actually how it works. Because when you use sourced as your only metric, you end up getting this fight, which is actually what Sunir's talking about. Did an SDR source that? Did marketing source that? Did partners source that? Only one person can source a deal when you use partner sourced. And that's not how it goes down, right? You could have an SDR talk to an enterprise account 2 years ago, and it went nowhere. Marketing hit him a few times. It went nowhere. Maybe they got a little more interested. And then all of a sudden, a partner who's very strategic with them brings up a different point of view to a different buyer inside of there, and you have this big deal that comes out. That's what I see at scale that comes from it. That's kind of the foundation I just want to ground Now, to answer your specific question, partner attached, like park how people are paid and all that stuff for a second. If you want to run partnerships at scale, they're critical to your go-to-market and they're critical to your company's success, then partner attach has to go across groups. Because you don't have to call it partner attached, but let's just say 50% of my business I want partners attached to, right? That means that my SDR teams, my marketing teams, my support teams, they all have to lean in and work with partners. So how do you measure and drive that behavior? If everyone just cares about source, they're not going to care at all, right? Versus if I go to marketing and say, hey, 50% of all my deals, I have to have partners attached to it. It's a core motion from the executive team. Well, in order for that to be true and for that to work, then marketing needs to step up and start involving partners in 50% of the marketing we're doing, as like a very high level example. So I actually believe it's a pretty big team sport. And the reason is very simple for me. And I'm a huge data driven guy. That's all I care about and look at most of the time as I think about decisions. I love people's point of views and frames and all of that, but the reality is the data generally doesn't have one if it's clean and accurate and everything else. It kind of shows you reality. And what I found in my business is that while my sourcing numbers have gone through the roof and we're all high-fiving each other and patting each other on the back and all that stuff, if I look at partner attach, I don't think we're doing that great of a job. And I think we can do a much better job and drive a much larger impact to the business, given the back-end data that I know, which is our deals close dramatically faster. They're much larger. Their trailing revenue, 12, 24, 36 months goes up. I'm talking dramatically more than a direct sold deal, hundreds of %, which is incredibly meaningful. Our attrition goes to almost 0 on those accounts. And our CSAT score is actually higher than our own, right? So when I look at the holistic picture, I'm patting my team on the back. Way to go, everybody. We're killing it. You're all getting paid. You're hitting your metrics. We're doing a great job. But the reality is my job is to drive a huge impact to the overall business. And when I look at the holistic picture and I look at the attached picture, I'd probably give myself like a D-, versus on my partner source revenue, I give myself an A++, right? That's
Aaron,
the delta as I look at these things.
One thing that you said at the beginning that I wanted to understand, because it's not the way I would define or use partner attached, because I use it more as a general survey of which partners are in my customer accounts. You said that you won't attach a partner that isn't sourcing, which to me doesn't make any sense the way I would consider it, because it's just a measure of what's happening. But you will not attach a partner even though they are in the account unless they're sourcing, which to me, I don't understand what you mean. But maybe you're using partner attach in a different way, and there's a different process that defines partner attach there that I think it's important to understand.
I want to be.
Then I think maybe we're talking about the same thing in different ways, you know.
Yeah, no, it's a good call out. I want to be crystal clear that we're not killing it across the board, y'all. We're not nailing this everywhere. We don't have this like magic globe that's like, oh, we're killing it across. Like, it doesn't exist. It's an iteration and things that you have to work on. What partner attach and how I think about it is, if I care about driving meaningful revenue for the company, which I do, there are 2 buckets that I can drive that revenue in, and which is what's in my control. One is sourcing. So I want a whole bunch of partners bringing me a lot of deals. And bucket 2 is I want my deals to be bigger. I want them to close faster, and I want them to grow long tail, right? I use attach to judge both of those things and look very closely at them. Because the reality is, when you get to a certain scale, let's say you started your ecosystem and your ecosystem was a delivery mechanism, meaning your direct sellers are going to sell. You need those customers to be implemented successfully. So you're going to have that partner deliver for you. 9 times out of 10, what you've created over time is those partners ride your wave. Period. They don't really have an incentive to source for you because you're just throwing them deals all day long, right? If I programmatically, and this is something we're working on right now, it's not live yet, but it will be. What we're doing programmatically is I'm going to control at the deal stage where partners can be attached, what partners can be attached, and we're curating it at a pretty detailed level. So who gets attached to enterprise in North America, as an example, isn't going to be the same type of partner profile or partner that's attached to SMB in Europe, as an example. And programmatically, they're not going to show up on the list that a direct seller can attach in the deal cycle unless they're sourcing for me and they're meeting their program requirements. So
Yeah, sorry,
I use
this part I don't
partner
understand. I just want to understand this, because I think there's different ways of looking at this, and I think this is really critical to how you found success, because you've built a process here that I want to tease out. So in my view, just to give you an idea, attached to me is a passive metric. So if they came in through integration, they clicked on a landing page or a co-marketing event, if they mentioned how did you hear about us, added to the API, if an agency logged into their account, I just log all that stuff, and just so I could get a panel of what other companies the customer is working with in order to work with our product or service. So I just track all of that stuff. There's no active measure. I'm just seeing what's happening. And then that they don't even need to be technically partners. Just another company is what I'm looking for, because they're not registered as a partner. So that's what I would consider an attach metric. It's just a passive measure. But in your case, you're using it in a more active sense. So
well, I think this is the SMB versus enterprise kind of distinction too that Aaron kind of called out, right? Like, if you look at the HubSpot model on how HubSpot actually built their ecosystem, HubSpot did not start as an overlay. HubSpot's entire agency program, I mean, what was the title on the agency side? Channel account manager, right? You had channel account managers that owned the agency relationship and sold through the end customer, and it never touched the direct team. That's not where it's at today. But I think to that point, Aaron, that was seen as a sourcing mechanism. And that's how Roberge thought about it, is like, hey, we can go source there. And in a new world where, they've moved up market a little bit, things get a little messy. So I think that, kind of where you come from, Sunir, having had, some incredible runs at hypergrowth mass market SMB startups. And I think where Aaron, Salesforce, Qualtrics, there is this kind of distinction where I think the market.
I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just curious how he's using these terms. And then, HubSpot, Catie, you track active channel program registered and also ones that are not registered as well internally. I know, and you have a measure, and you're trying to convert from the unregistered to registered partners as well, right?
Yeah, I agree. It's a passive metric, but it's a metric that we are starting to focus on how we can impact that metric. So when Aaron says that it's a team sport, I agree, because we see so many benefits of getting that attached metric up and getting more customers to integrate with more partners. We are starting to roll out programs of how we encourage our sales folks, CS folks, onboarding folks to have those tech stack conversations. And really, it's important to have the organizational systems in place to get those folks to care, right? And engage and recommend partners when having those tech stack conversations. So because we can see the value, Aaron, like you said, across the board of getting that number up, we do now have programs where we're trying to encourage our sales reps to have those conversations and get their, integration usage number up. And CS folks, we actually incentivize our onboarding team. We have promotion metrics around how many installs they have when somebody comes out of onboarding. So it's something that we are trying to find ways to impact as opposed to just watch. We can track quality of partnership around like how engaged a customer is by just watching it happen. But we want to see if we can impact that number by getting our internal folks enabled around it.
Let me frame this, and Catie, I'll just carry on to that. And Patrick actually asked a really good question in chat. And Sunir, maybe this will help answer the question for you. When I'm talking about attach as a metric for me, come back to the two core buckets. I want more sourced, and I want more partners working with end customers because I know it drives our revenue through the roof. We've already understood the fact that it drives that revenue through the roof. So if you're a smaller stage company, probably it's not going to work that way because you don't have the view and the data set that I do. When I say attach, let's just use some numbers. So, and these are fake numbers, by the way. We don't share any of this stuff externally, but I'm going to anonymize it. Let's say I've increased sourced revenue 400% for the company, yet my partner attach ratio is 10%. across all deals done globally. I want that partner attached to go from 10% to 20%, because I know that if I can drive that, my sourcing will go up based on the way my program is designed, and my overall revenue will go way up in accounts because I'll have more partners working with more customers, and I know it matches the data set I have to make that grow. So it's not necessarily that I'm marching towards like, attach as some holy grail or something like that. I use it as an active metric to understand the journey we're on to increase both those two buckets. And
let me tease out what I'm trying to get to, because I think you're saying something really.
Let me finish
you're saying
this
something that's valuable.
Yeah, hold on just 1 second. Let me round it out.
Yeah, sure.
There is some interesting data and evidence out there at the largest scaling ecosystems on the planet that deeply understand this. Why is Google driving to 100% partner attached? Why? It's expensive. It's a lot of work. Got to hire people. Got to do all this stuff. Why? Because if they measure attach, we want our field involved, right? I'm not selling in a world where I have partner sellers that sell on their own. That doesn't exist. For me, it's a team sport. I'm trying to drive my field. Google's trying to drive their field too. So you're trying to drive a behavior. I can either have my partner team clob my sales team over the head all day long and hope they work with partners, or we can all normalize ourselves on a metric we care about, the executive team, which is partner attach, and we're looking in the field and saying, well, wait a minute, North America, and again, I'm just making all this up. It's not actual metrics for us. North America attach is doing awesome. Europe attach is really low. I'm correlating and looking at the overall revenue numbers with my field counterparts to understand how do I actually dramatically impact their business. It's that, but that's why Google does it. It's why Amazon is moving very extensively in that direction, because they have the largest data sets on the planet to know what I'm talking about. But again, my lens is very much so from large scale, large revenue, very mature, older ecosystems. It's not like a day one ground up build. Okay, justifying so attach as a metric at that point would be very difficult, I think.
Right. Let me tease out that we agree, but the way you're using the word is interesting. And so what I'm trying to get to is when you say attach, this is an active process at Qualtrics, or you're introducing a customer to a partner. That's what you mean. It's actively attached by your company. Is that what you mean?
Nailed it.
Okay, yeah. So that's different.
We do a lot of our work.
We were confused because attach was usually a passive measure of just like whatever people are doing, and that's a generic. That's why it's the CFOs generally like whatever. It doesn't mean anything. Customers are going to do this anyway. What you're doing is proactive action to generate motion, reward partners, and I think this is the key idea that we should talk about, because that's actually how you'd be successful. And when I say hearts won, this is what I meant. Is like it's dating. So they're bringing stuff to you. You have to return back to them, and you build more and more action. Then they're going to depend on you and deliver more stuff to you. That's what we were to our team internally. We would say, because it's easier for young people to understand the romance of partnerships this way. But this is exactly the same thing.
We're saying the same thing, actually. I'm glad you call this out in the same language, because for me, I can't live in a world like if it would have been 3 years ago and cost of sale didn't matter and like people were grabbing market share, and if you were losing money, it was cool. That's done now, right? So how do I make my partner team as efficient as humanly possible and have them focused on what I really want them focused on, which is getting our partners signed up to speed, effective, driving impact for my end customers, and to Catie's point, having really smiling, happy customers at the end of that journey. I want my team doing that. I want my team working with big SIs and companies like that to land and expand and get into all these different accounts and all these different motions. What I don't want them doing is spending 90% of their time trying to get direct to work with a partner, right? That doesn't make sense, because in order for me to do that, I have to hire a lot of people, 5 times the amount of people, and it's going to cost me a fortune in order to do so. So I use that attach, kind of like your heart's won, as it's what we're viewing the world on that. I don't pay my team that way. My team's not paid on attach. It's a business metric that I'm looking at to drive what I really care about, which is dramatically increasing the revenue for the company. But when I look at it, we're looking at it with our sales leaders, we're looking at it with our customers, so we're looking at it across the company. to understand that. And it's the only metric I've ever found. And if there's any better ones, I'm totally open to evolving my point of view on that. That gives a single metric that people can really look at and understand for how to scale it and not have to have a partner team that's like hundreds of people, because that gets you into trouble. To your point at the beginning of the call, you know, how do you staff this stuff? How do you pay for it? All that.
Right. And that's I think that's where some of these points start to come together, is that if you're viewing partner attach as a singular metric that represents the health of your quote unquote ecosystem, you're probably in a bad place. You probably are riding coattails, and you're just trying to put numbers on the board. But if you're viewing partner attach through the lens as a management, and Aaron, how you've spoken about this is spoken like a true executive, you know, like, hey, there's a CMO on the other side, and their marketing programs, or CRO, you have to utilize this as a tool to orchestrate the impact, if you are the partner leader, inside of your business, right? Across these things. Those are your levers. Partner attaches your measure as to whether or not, in my opinion, you are effective, or your company's effective at working with partners, right? Can you do that across each department? So I would look at partner attach for marketing, for sales, on a per rep basis, on a per CS basis. Like, it's a metric that's applied to the conversation. It's not a metric that's applied to the business kind of overall. Would that be a fair way of thinking about that, Aaron? Kind of from your point of view, it's not a singular. It's depending on how you're driving the convo.
Yeah, 100%. And again, I want to be very, very clear. We are not perfect at this. We are in the beginning of our journey. I mean, we've been working on the program designs and the thought process behind this and the system work and all that for over a year, and we haven't fully launched it yet. So like, we're looking at this stuff, but is it in active, like I'm doing backflips down the hallway, that we're killing it on attach? No. But my point behind it is, when I joined, everyone cared about source. I've hit my sourced targets. I'll go even further. I've destroyed my sourced targets. My team has done an unbelievable job at it. I'm very proud of them for the execution that they've done driving that metric. But you know what the downside of that metric is, and where it's become problematic? My team spends an absorbent amount of their time convincing other groups why they should work with partnerships, versus if they have a metric they have to drive to that includes our partners, my team gets that time back. And when I said I would give us a D- on attach, when I look across the geos, like in a nirvana world for me, 75% attach would be us killing it, because you have to look at the business segments and the geos. Like, there's a lot of places where that doesn't make sense, but in our core markets, it really does. Again, I'm killing my metrics for what my team is compensated on. But when I look at the actual attach, we got a lot of work to do. I'm nowhere near 75%, not even remotely close to it. We're talking light years away from that number. And I know that if I can shift the company and the mindset to drive towards that, I know that the amount of revenue and impact, which everyone should care about that's on this call, right? You drive through your partnerships, goes up dramatically. And I can help drive the company to go from, we're like 1.7 billion right now, to $4 or $5 billion, which is the type of scale we're trying to drive. Someone just asked in the chat, what's my team compensated? They're compensated on sourced, and they're compensated. Partner impact for us. I saw some people chatting about that. Impact is sourced and influenced in our world today, and we roll both those things up. I am way more, my teams are way more heavily focused and compensated on sourcing revenue, which comes back to Sunir, your point in the very beginning, right? How do you make sure teams are driving value and your CFO signs off on it? They care a lot about sourcing. Attach is a active metric to understand not only how you can source at scale, but to drive the behavior you need across the company. So that's just the lens I use it under. And it's also the lens, I'd love to say I came up with all this. I didn't. I'm just paying attention to what really big, sophisticated ecosystems are doing at scale and the leading indicators they're driving, and then seeing if I can take similar approaches and have the data to back it up that matches inside of my business. And luckily for me, all the businesses I've been in match that, right? And I have you can't argue the data I have to back it up.
100%.
I'm really interested, Catie. I mean, Aaron, so interesting. Now we understood we're talking about the same thing, but we're using the terms, it's words. We're a nerd debate on jargon. I love it. But like Catie, you mentioned at HubSpot, you have a different core metric, not revenue. You're looking right now at retention, just post-sales lifecycle metrics. And you have, of course, HubSpot's the anchor app. And so you're mostly upstream from all the apps. You're basically driving more customers to them, although they do drive some for you. And then you also have the agency, which is split between demand gen agencies and, again, post-sales, especially the higher metal tiered agencies at HubSpot. So how do you guys sort this problem out right now about evaluating impact to partners? How do you measure it?
Yeah, so interesting. So at HubSpot, we actually have separate pillars of the business that manage our agency partners and our app partners. And we are understanding that we're leaving a lot of value on the table by not bringing these programs more closely together. So Aaron, when you talk about the goal of having like 100% partner attached, we do have a goal around having our agency solution partners involved in a much higher rate of our deals. And way we're starting to think about that is how we can bring our app partners and our solutions partners closely together, get them involved in their programs, so that as our agency partners are selling more HubSpot, they are then more likely to involve our tech partners in their tech stacks for their customers. And we have this really thriving ecosystem of where our customer is winning because they have a great solutions partner. Our tech partners are winning because they're being brought into more deals. And HubSpot's winning because our customers are retaining at a much higher rate. So if you're at Inbound this year, we talked a lot about how we can start to bring both of these sides of our business more closely together, introduce them to each other, educate them on how to have really great partner programs across both these pillars, and solve for our customer in a really compelling way. So that is what we're starting to introduce and be more strategic about. So I'm interested next year when we have the same conversation, we'll talk about how that is working for us, but it's definitely something we're starting to shine a light on internally.
How do you sort of think about that? It does start to create an interesting question for many different reasons, especially when there's things like partner compensation involved, and you're looking at the lens through like attach, and you have ISV partners, but then let's say agencies or consultants or these kind of multiple personas. Where does that start to kind of break down kind of across this? I think if you have a partner person that owns, let's say, an SI, kind of on the Qualtrics side versus kind of a more of an ecosystem orchestrated long tail approach, all of a sudden you have multiple partners on this account record that are being managed, that you are trying to roll up. What kind of challenges does that kind of create on your side? Is there fighting over like who gets what where?
So as up to this point, no, right? So our agency program has been around and we've iterated on it for a very long time. So we have a pretty clear path around how they're registering their leads and working with HubSpot sales and ensuring that that process is teed up and, managed as well as possible so that they are getting paid out on their rev share, etc. The app partner program, we don't have any rev share component to our app partner program. So as long as they're tied into a deal, to up until this point, this is what they're looking for: a new customer logo, better retention, better activation within their own tool, and then working with a HubSpot reseller helps them amplify their potential with working with HubSpot customers. So as the program stands today, we work on the rev component with our resellers and no rev component with our app partners. Does that answer your question, Jared?
Yeah, so I'll give you a specific example that I actually was a part of this sales cycle, and I was like, oh, I wonder what's going to happen here. Yeah, there was an existing HubSpot agency, so solid agency, working with a tech company and helping them with their marketing programs. They switched from Salesforce to HubSpot CRM. That started to happen in the past couple of years, which is, I feel like everyone's been saying it'll happen eventually. I'm starting to see a little bit of it here and there for a couple 100-person companies. Yep. And when they did that, they engaged a sales consultancy, right, to help their sales team. So you have two HubSpot solution partners inside of this account. And then you have obviously the ISVs kind of surrounding it. And then wait a second, how does that necessarily work? Because then there was a little bit of a fight. in a funny way, marketing and sales, they just can't get along, even when they're working in separate, companies. There was this marketing and sales battle in this HubSpot account on like who got credit for kind of that component, and then how you kind of measured it. So, I mean, maybe that's more specific to a platform, but at maturity, it does create some interesting questions. I'm curious if you'd seen any of that in some of those ISV accounts where multiple agency partners were involved.
Yeah, there's some nuance to, I think, each example, and I don't want to speak. I'm not 100% sure, so I don't want to tell you for sure. But I think something around rev share as opposed to attached, and how much credit folks are getting, and in the order of operations that they are presented in the deal. So I think like the first person to register that lead gets a lot of the credit, and then we attach it with the existing partners. So it's common to have more than one solutions partner involved in a deal, but I'm not exactly sure how we, provide the benefit throughout that life cycle.
And I would have to imagine that'd be on a per opportunity basis. So if there was an upsell, right, that, sales consultancy would be kind of first in line for that versus the marketing agency that was, running the retainer there. Phenomenal. Folks, I think that I wanted to see if there was any questions and things that we had. I know there was a bunch. Chat was blowing up. This was, we knew this was going to be a fun one. There's questions for that folks had that wanted to make sure that we got out for Catie, Aaron, or Sunir while we have everyone here. We can scroll through the chat and see if there's any that we missed that anyone wants to hop into too.
Speaking of questions, I want to plug it because I just launched it. Our pet robot is now live. So the Cloud Software Association SaaS Partnership Smarty Pants, saasconnect.org. Go there, you'll find it. You can go play.
Of course, I leave a pause and Sunir starts plugging stuff. No, totally cool.
It's fun.
Totally.
I built the robot of everything we've been talking about, except for you, Jared. I excluded you specifically.
Jared, there's a lot of questions in the chat on like what we mean by attach, and like, can someone define it? I think the point is we all have different definitions of it, and we're calling it different things. Like for me, partner attached is what percentage of our overall revenue has a partner attached, and when I say attached, working with that revenue and with that customer. That's what it means for me. Catie, what's it mean for you? Sunir, what's it mean for you? Right? Like I think that's the point we need to share, because it's not one size fits all.
Yeah, it's such a great point. The way that we look at it is on a per partner basis. We look at, of all the portals that have integrated that partner, what is the total MRR of all the portals that have integrated that partner? So we look at, it's essentially telling us how many customers and the size of the customer that are using that partnership or using that integration.
Yeah, I use it similarly. However, just to get to my point about what I think people have experienced this year, and also, my own history, it's like, what is the point of partnerships? I want to it's more important to think about that, and why I ended up with this Hearts One, which is what you're talking about, sourcing, increasing the sourcing. For us, I told as I explained to the CEO, the job of the partnership team was to align your technical product with a system of products and companies that the customer's using, because every technology is in a system of other technology and services. And then not only package, place, promote, position the product against the other companies, but get them to promote us because they love us so much at Hearts One that we have market victory. We won 50% of the market, crossing the chasm style, because that's the part of the marketing function of partnerships. And that you can't just be integrated with another product. You need to also push the market forward, that they're promoting you actively over your competition. And that, that's value add on top of just sending a lead to sales. That's just a BDR, SDR that's job. Our job was to get the other companies to love us so much that we work together, to market together, to push forward together and be market leaders. And that's why I have this idea of when they send you an opportunity unsolicited, they think of you top of mind, you've obviously won their heart. And that's why we measured when they send us unsolicited inbound opportunities. And that's what you have to, reward your partners with something in return, like another co-marketing action or anything as well, to reciprocate, to keep that dating relationship alive. And like they say, most CEOs, they don't understand anything we just said, but they do understand high school dating. And so that's kind of I use the romance jargon. They seem to get that a lot easier than influence attach or whatever we're talking about. They can understand, oh, I gotta buy dinner. Yeah, you do have to buy dinner occasionally. It's important. So
I think that here's just an observation, and feel free to disagree, folks on the call, is that I think that the three of you actually have a different, you come from a different point of view and perspective. I think Catie, let's say, tightly aligned to the product and success side, right? Sunir, tightly aligned, let's say, to the market and marketing side, and Aaron, tightly aligned to, hey, let's make sure that our opportunities, frontline net new business, or let's say core expansion, right? Opportunity dollars, where that's aligned. And if you zoom out, I think that answers the question in a lot of ways, right? We might have different definitions, we might be talking about it a little bit differently, but if you really think, hey, these are three different folks at three very different companies impacting, let's say, as their primary entry vehicle, other parts of the business, aligning to those departments. And that's, to me, in a lot of ways, what's so exciting about this moment and movement, and the fact that chat's blowing up, we're having a good conversation and debate, is that this is a maturing function for every department. You know, if it wasn't, none of the folks on this call today would have a job, right? Marketing, sales, success, everyone would just be doing this automatically, because clearly, to Aaron's point, to HubSpot's earnings that have never been missed, it works, right? It does drive more dollars. So what a great way to wrap that one up and bring it home. I think there was one more question. We'll go till 5 minutes to give folks a break between their next call. I hate when that happens. 1 p.m. starts, boom, I got my next call. This was a good one by Rachel. Proof of influence to attribute partners and adding deals. I'm curious if anyone has a strong opinion on that. Catie, I have to imagine that sales ops at HubSpot at scale has some rules or guardrails on that. I'm curious if you've seen anything from your side.
Sorry, proof of
influence. So like, hey, partner attaches, let's say, happening, so to speak. Had you seen anything where agencies are coming in and out of tech partners in your accounts, or is that not necessarily something you're tracking on the app partner side?
So app partnerships, we don't track that as closely. I come from agency partners, so we do track obviously deal reg, and then we track engagement inside of the portal. So we are continuing to track if solutions partner is working with a customer on an ongoing basis. And we do have the systems to ensure that that really is continuing to happen. With agency partners, we track, or with tech partnerships, we track retention of integration. So if folks are continuing to use the integration, we keep an eye on that and use that around quality of integration and how we work with that partner to ensure that we continue to recommend them to customers.
Aaron, any advice on proof of influence from your side?
Yeah, that's a good question. I see Travis is on this call too, because his question's in the chat. At the good old days, we were at Salesforce and the ISV group together. We're doing big OEM deals. That was real easy, right? It's did a partner buy licensing, build on top of it, and then go sell it. Direct wasn't involved. It was real straightforward to do that. In the world I live in now, it's totally different. And when I define influence, they're either strategic to getting the deal done, or they're doing the delivery for the deal to be successful. Delivery to be the deal, for the deal to be successful, is really easy to look at. Like, are they the partner actually implementing our technology? Because our stuff does not implement itself, right? It requires partners to do so, or our own services teams. The impactful or like really important inside of an account, that's a little more difficult. And sometimes that stuff is disputed, but we just ask for proof from the partner, or our own internal teams have it, which shows the communication, what they did, all of that stuff. Because if they actually influence the deal, there's a paper trail always. It's not that hard to find. I'm not making people go nuts over it, right? Just grab some screenshots. Let's take a look at it, and let's do it. But I'm very fortunate that my partner organization deeply understands the fact that if you're attaching yourself or you're tagging yourself to deals or any of that kind of stuff, then the partner is not doing anything in that. It actually really hurts our credibility and our team. So I don't really run into a lot of that on uninfluenced. My battles come from who sourced it, but that's because internally only one team can source in my world. Marketing can source, an SDR can source, a partner can source. All three can't source at the same time in our current model. Keyword current. on that front. That is a little more challenging, and I would say I've got some PhDs in my team at this point that are excellent at making sure that they're getting the appropriate credit that they should. We don't lose that many partner source attribution battles.
This
Incredible.
is the nightmare of commissions, right? And you end up with internal competition. And I have another mantra. I didn't learn this. I got it from someone else. But the customers don't care how you're disorganized. They just literally don't care. As far as you're concerned, your entire company is one person. Legally, that's true. If you're a mess internally because you're fighting with each other, just pisses the customer off. If you're fighting with the customer partner, they don't care. They just want to get on with their day. And if the commissions are causing friction internally, at some point, during the company retreat, all the revenue leaders need to get a big tub of margaritas and sort it out, because it's just your job is to work together as a team, and you got to find some way of sorting it so it's easy, but easier said than done.
Yeah.
Well said, everyone.
Said.
This is a conversation that absolutely needed to happen. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in, participating, making chat fun and lovely. Everyone brought a fantastic perspective. I think everyone's going to have some takeaways. The recording obviously will be made available. Shout out to Catie, helping out on the app partner ecosystem at HubSpot, Sunir from CSA and AppBind, and Aaron McGarry from Qualtrics is the Chief Ecosystem Officer. For Reveals Nearbound at Work session, we have these every single Wednesday. Thank you very much. I'm Jared, and we'll see you more in content land at nearbound.com. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great rest of your Wednesday.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. See ya.